Welcome to r/PettyRevenge, where we share stories of small victories over those who have wronged you. Thank you guys for subscribing, likes, and supporting in the comments. The first story: tourist woman ignores etiquette and is rude to other passengers. You spend New Year's Eve alone. The second story: the client rubbed my pen and lost the contract. The third story: boss did not listen to me and regretted it. The fourth story: customer was irate, asked to speak to supervisor. It was me. On to the first story. Sorry for the delay. There are idiots on the tube. New Year's Eve. I was told that every London Underground line would be open until 4:30 a.m. and that from 11:45 to 4:30 a.m. it would be free of charge. Thus, I decided at the last minute to make a quick dash to my friend's house so that I would be able to celebrate the beginning of a new year with someone else, and not alone. 11:20 p.m. Halfway through my short journey, while I was interchanging at King's Cross Station, along comes a woman of Asian descent who looked to be about in her 30s, dressed in attire that screamed tourist, consisting of a woolen hat, gloves, and a thick bristly jacket with the words "I love London" imprinted on the front. I am a minority myself, though English is my first language, so I have no ill manner with the average Asian tourist, as others might. The first red flag was then she stood, on her phone, watching a movie out loud for the public to hear, on the left side of the escalator downward, which is one of my biggest pet peeves, worsened by the fact that I was in a mild rush and did not want to have to stop to wait for others to dawdle down on their merry way. Yet I let it slide, as I was too polite to ask her to get out of the way, and I knew that sometimes foreign tourists didn't have a full understanding of the tube etiquette that was commonplace. I let it slide. Alas, my attention was once again drawn to the same woman when I saw her rush past several members of the public walking down the station in order to grab a seat to wait for a train, bearing in mind that trains come every 1 to 4 minutes, and she appeared to be carrying little that could weigh her down. I watched in partial disbelief when she stole the priority seat from an elderly man who looked to be slowly making his way to the same position, but was cut short by this boisterous lady. Eavesdropping slightly, I heard the man ask very politely, "Please, may I have this seat?" only to be rejected with such a response, as "Sorry, I don't speak much English." This man then approached a staff worker who asked the woman to give up her seat, to which she replied with angry curses in a foreign language, and ultimately the worker gave up. The final straw for me was when, upon entering the train, eastbound Victoria line, it was apparent she actually had no effing clue where she was going, and instead of looking on the map, which was very clearly printed overhead, she took to the nearest person to her seat, me. I was minding my own business, listening to some lo-fi music, when I felt a rough tug on my arm and looked over to see this lady not so subtly asking me for help. Had she asked politely, I would have had no hesitation at all, but instead of doing so, she immediately blurted out her question to me. She explained in broken English that she wanted to go to Edgware Station to meet her friends outside the Beirut Cafe for what I can only assume to be a New Year's Eve meetup. I myself have been in that area before, so I knew that in fact she was talking about Edgware Road Station, which was in a different location. This is where my idea began to take place. Edgware Station, the destination that she didn't actually want to go to, is a good 45-minute tube journey away from Edgware Road Station, and is the very last spot on a long branch of the northbound Northern Line, with no interchanges. The time taken to travel there, realized the mistake, and traveled to the correct station was far greater than the 35 or so minutes left until 2019, and thus my plan began to materialize. I told her with great confidence that I knew exactly where she was going, as I had been to that very cafe, and showed her with the downloaded tube map on my phone. Why she couldn't use the much bigger one overhead baffled me. How to get to Edgware Station, pointing out the long branch, I told her that if she hurried, she would still be able to make it before the clock struck midnight. She turned her attention back to her phone, without giving me thanks or even acknowledgement that I had said anything. I signaled to her at Euston Station, which was the interchange onto the Northern Line. I happened to be going to Camden Town, which also took the same line, so I tailed her carefully to ensure that she was going in the right direction, watching her repeat the same actions as when she first raised red flags. Exiting the train at said Camden Town, walking along the platform to the way out, I stole a glance inside the train and grinned devilishly when I saw her, busy on her phone, inside the train that was making its way north to Edgware. Mission success. I had plenty of time to meet my friend at his house, as it was close to the station, but I knew that a certain lady would not be celebrating 2019 with her friends, and instead aimlessly trying to find a cafe miles away on the street. I told my friend this, and we had a great time that night laughing about the story while watching the fireworks on the TV. Perhaps it was bad of me to ruin a New Year's Eve for a single person, but it was on her to be a nuisance to the general public, especially for those who just want to get from point A to point B without a hitch. The next story is the $250,000 pin. One of my best friends, Alex, was a staffer in a legislative office. His boss was head of a key Senate budget committee, so there were always people coming to solicit her support for a particular project or grant or whatever. I should have clarified, this was a state senator, not a U.S. senator. I've worked in and around state politics all my life, and I forgot to make the distinction. Someone representing an arts program that was looking for a $250,000 grant is waiting. I'll call her Lobby Ann. She comes up to the reception desk and asks for a pen. The senator keeps giveaway pens with her name on them in stock, reasonably nice ones, So Alex reaches over to the can, where the pens are. Lobby Ann says something along the lines of, "Well, then the senator will know that I showed up without a pen." So what? She looks across the desk. Alex has some work spread out with his own favorite pen, an expensive one with lapis inlay and engraved with his name and term of office of a campus organization. Lobby Ann reaches over, snatches it up and drops it in her purse. Alex, who is a very polite person, is completely gobsmacked and then tells Lobby Ann that's his personal pen and not up for grabs. Lobby Ann gives him a contemptuous look and refuses, very rudely. One of the sad and funny things about this story is that she uses a slur that Alex was not sure was a reference to his heritage, Asian, or his perceived sexuality. Oddly enough, given the nature of the stolen object, either slur ended with ink. Alex, confused and deeply upset, sits back down while Lobby Ann flounces back to the waiting area. In a few minutes, the senator comes out to get Lobby Ann. As they're walking past Alex's desk, he stands up and says in a very clear voice, "I'm gonna need my pen back." Lobby Ann stops in her tracks, as does the senator, and Alex says calmly, "I may be a slur or a slur, whatever you want to call me, but that pen is precious to me. You stole it right off this desk and I want it back." The senator kinda gasps and says, "She stole your lapis pen? She called you a slur?" And then she turns to Lobby Ann, who's frantically fishing around in her purse and stammering something about just borrowing it, and says, "Give it back." Once the pen is back in Alex's hand, the senator says to Alex, "Come on back, I need you," and turns and walks back into her office, leaving Lobby Ann standing there as the senator shuts the inner office door in her face. Then the senator picks up her purse, smiles a big bright smile and says, "Want Starbucks?" So she and Alex go out the side door and across the street. They could see the front door of the office from the Starbucks. It apparently took Lobby Ann about 5 minutes to realize how bad she'd effed up, and that she was not going to see the senator that day, or any day, and that the project she was going to ask money for was probably doomed as well. She'd lined up strong support in the House, so it might have made it through, though it was not the kind of project the senator favored. When she came slinking out, she almost certainly saw Alex and the senator sitting there drinking their drinks. Alex always ends this story with, "That was the best coffee I've ever had." I should also explain better about the pen situation, and here I have to make a few assumptions. The pens in the cup on the counter were probably campaign swag, in the senator's campaign colors and with their logo on them. Lobby Ann probably thought that meeting with a politician using a pen she'd obviously just taken looked bad. If that was the case, she was focused on a stupid detail that the senator almost certainly didn't care about. And anyway, the pens were there to be taken. Also, I kinda tend to doubt that she carefully evaluated Alex's pen, judged it to be valuable and got covetous. She just saw a pen that didn't look like a campaign pen, a blue pen with gold writing on it, and just grabbed it. Until she picked it up, she may well have thought it was plastic. Once she picked it up, however, it should have been obvious from its weight that it was not a cheap pen. The third story is, my chef screamed at me for not doing things his way. Tried it his way. Turns out, I was right. About a year ago, I worked under this chef with a bit of an anger problem. It was no big deal most of the time, and for the most part, we got along great. But he rubbed a lot of people the wrong way because he had a bit of a temper. He had this habit of keeping a stack of pans on the back burner of the range with the flame on. This was to cut down on our ticket times, because we didn't have to wait for our pans to heat up first. You could just grab one off the top and start cooking your food. I hated it because eventually it warped every sauté pan we had, but I've heard this is a thing people do and don't pay for the pans, so whatever. One day I'm making a mac and cheese, which involves a pre-made cheese sauce, which is already hot on the line, and pre-cooked noodles in a pan. For those who aren't cooks, this does not require a white-hot preheated pan. It's a gentle reheating process, unless you want to scorch and ruin your sauce. So I grab a new cold pan off the top, rather than the ones he's had on the back burner for 30 plus minutes. The chef absolutely loses it, goes red in the face, saying, "I tell you every effing day not to use cold pans. Why can't you just effing listen? Blah, blah, blah." Essentially implying I'm stupid and can't follow simple directions. By the end of the day, almost every other employee came up to ask if I was okay, giving me hugs, etc. It was nice, but at the same time, I'm a line cook and he's the chef. I know my place in the kitchen. I simply responded with a "Yes, chef, won't happen again." Next day, I get another mac and cheese, and I think, yes, this is my moment. I grab the hottest pan from the bottom of the stack and drop the hot cheese sauce in, all the while knowing he's watching over my shoulder. I leaned back as the sauce burst into flames, instantly breaking into a weird, disgusting combo of curdled-looking cheese and oil. The pan was so hot the macaroni noodles seared and stuck to the pan I was using. I just shrugged, served it up, and put it in the window. Chef comes over to it mad as heck, mumbling and grumbling something along the lines of, "We can't serve this, SH, make it again." So I made it my way and it turned out fine. He stopped preheating the pans after that, and not another word was spoken about it ever again. And the last story is, you'd like to speak to the supervisor? I used to work at a pizza restaurant called Center, and due to my exceptionally calm and courteous demeanor, and the fact that I never lose my cool under pressure, I was eventually promoted to the position of Escalated Transfer Supervisor. For those of you who don't know, the Escalated Transfer Supervisor, ETS, is the end of the line when a customer is sent to customer service. Typically, customers were only transferred to me when they were being so unreasonable that the regular customer service rep, CSR, couldn't deal with them anymore. In any case, on especially busy days like Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve, the CSR team will step in and assist the ordering reps processing pizza orders. On just such a night, I happened into a particularly large queue to help clear some of the order calls. The customer was rude right off the bat, saying that it was unreasonable for her to have waited 20 minutes on hold. Keep in mind it was dinner time on New Year's Eve. I explained this to her in my nicest customer service voice. She brushed me off with a whatever. No big deal. She then proceeds to ask for a special that's offered by one of our competitors. I explained to her that we don't offer that special, as it's one offered by another company, but offered something very comparable, again in a cheery and pleasant voice. She flipped out, claiming that the customer is always right, and that I was being so rude. She then asked to be transferred to customer service so she could have me fired. I happily obliged, adding her into another 20-minute queue. I then made sure that her call would come right back to me as I took over a CSR desk. When I answered, she seemed confused and asked, "Wasn't I just speaking to you?" I told her that she was indeed speaking to me, and that occasionally customer service reps step in to ease the stream of calls on busy days. She just flipped out, insulting my mother, my intelligence, and anything else she could think of. She then asked to speak to my supervisor and told me I would regret messing with her. So I put her into my ETS queue and helped ebb the flow of orders before going into my office and taking her call. As soon as she heard my voice, she cried in despair, "Don't tell me you're the supervisor." I told her I was, and that I would be delighted to take her complaint. She sheepishly told me that it wasn't necessary, apologized to me for the way she had been acting, and commended me on my professionalism, placed her order, and hung up. I've never felt so gratified in my life. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you liked it, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button.